Number 2. Let's practice reading. Ready? Epistusan te graphe kai to lago han apen ha Jesus. Now, I have just got to think that God wanted us to have graphe and logos in the same sentence so that we would know the difference between the Greek words for scripture and word. All right? So, epistusan, he tells you, they believed. What case are te graphe and to logo? Dative. Yes, so they believed in te graphe, the scripture, and the word han apen ha Jesus. What kind of word is han? That is a relative pronoun. What case, gender, number is this? Accusative, singular, neuter? Just kidding. Masculine. That's right. Now, why is it singular and masculine? Okay, and the antecedent is? The antecedent and the head are the same thing. Is it the scripture and the word? Well, okay, so this is feminine singular and dative. That is masculine singular and dative. Now, if I had whose here, it would be accusative, plural, masculine. I might be tempted to think it refers to both. But this is singular and masculine. Yeah, so its referent is the word. Okay? Now, why is it accusative? Yes. Well, it's not what they believed. That's over here, right? It's what Jesus said. And it's the direct object of apen, right? And the word which Jesus said. Or that, but not who. Right? Okay. So they believed two direct objects. Yes? They believed the scripture and they believed the word which Jesus said.
So it wouldn't be in the scripture. You could say they believed in the scripture.
No, you could say they believed in the scriptures. Yeah. All right. So, but my point here is just to help you see that sometimes there's some ambiguity in our language as to how to divvy up the structure of a sentence. And I'll give you an example here. Okay. Okay, so I love boys and girls with blonde hair. What's my modifier here? What's the part of this sentence that modifies something? Not just blonde hair, but with blonde hair. Okay? This is a prepositional phrase, and prepositional phrases modify things. If they modify a verb, then they are adverbial, right? If they modify nouns, they are adjectival. Here's the question. What does with blonde hair modify? How many of you think that it only modifies girls? Okay, no one wants to take that. How many of you think it modifies boys and girls? Yeah. Okay. It really is ambiguous. Like it is totally formally ambiguous. It could be I love boys and I love girls with blonde hair, or I love boys and girls, both with blonde hair. Okay?
Wouldn't we naturally take that as well, though, like as a series?
I really think that there'd be something in the context that would contextually tip you off there. But otherwise, it really could go both ways. Okay? Because what we have here is we have two things conjoined by the and because those could form a unit, right, they're all the direct object of love. But we don't know internally whether this modifier goes with both or just one. Right?
You could say, like, I love cars and trucks with big tires.
That's right.
That would be a little more.
Yes, because people don't usually like cars with big tires, right? Yeah, I love cars and trucks with big tires. Although formally it could go either way, contextually one seems to make more sense. Okay, so here the prepositional phrase is the modifier, but I could use a relative clause in exactly the same sort of situation, right? I love boys and girls who speak Greek. Okay, so that's a relative clause now modifying either girls or boys and girls, right? I love boys and girls who speak Greek, or I love boys and girls who speak Greek. Formally, that's ambiguous, isn't it? Okay, and the who, because in English, does not change its gender or number to reflect its antecedent, leaves it ambiguous. Greek is more specific, though, and helps you to identify the referent of that relative pronoun.
So if the who was in feminine,
Yeah, so if the who was just feminine, plural, it would go with girls. If it were masculine, plural, then I would assume both. The reason being that if it were only referring to the boys, it would have gone after the boys. Okay? All right. So back to this. The specific gender and number here has committed me to one referent for that relative pronoun.
why is that on in the accusative?
Because Jesus is nominative, ha Jesus, so he's the subject. This is the verb. Han is the direct object. Right? So what you do is you take the head and plug it in where the relative pronoun is and see if that makes sense for what you're thinking it's saying. Jesus spoke the word. Isn't that what he's saying? They believed the scripture and the word, and which word is it? Well, Jesus spoke the word. It's that word, right? Because whatever the relative pronoun is, it refers to the same thing as the head. They always are what we say, or what I mentioned last week, they are always co-referential. The head and the pronoun refer to the same thing, right? That's why they have the same gender and number. So replace the relative pronoun with whatever it modifies, the head, and it should make sense to you. Jesus spoke a word, and it's that word that they believe in. By the way, this isn't denying that Jesus went around quoting scripture too, right? I mean, Jesus spoke his own words, and he also spoke scripture truth to people. He did both. But what this text is saying is that they believed the writings and they believed Jesus' word in addition. Okay? All right, what other questions do you have? Number 3. All right, let's read this. Ready? Gnoridzo de humin adelphoi ta evangelion ha evangelisamen humin ha kai par elabete en ho kai hestekate, dihu, kai, sodzeste. All right. What's gnoridzo? He tells you, I make known. De is postpositive. I'm going to translate it first, though, right? So now, but I make known humin to you, adelphoi, brothers. What case is adelphoi? It's vocative. Vocative, and that means that adelphoi is the direct address. It's the noun of direct address. It's who I'm addressing. All right, I make known to you ta evangelion, the gospel. What case is ta evangelion? Accusative. Gender and number? Singular. Look at the ta, it's neuter, right? Could it be nominative in form? Yeah. Yep. In form, that could be nominative or accusative because neuters are the same in both of those, right? Why can it not be the nominative in this sentence? It's the direct object, and the subject is not third person. The gospel does something, but rather gnoridzo, I, which is what person? First person. Yeah, so I already have a subject, so this has got to be the direct object. So I make known the gospel. Now, what kind of word is ha? Is that the article? Nay, it is the relative pronoun, isn't it? What case gender number is this puppy? Okay, so we know it's singular, we know it's neuter. Ha is nominative or accusative. Now, here's the question. Why is it singular and neuter? Yeah, what's its referent? What's its head? The gospel. The gospel is neuter singular. Now, here it's accusative. Does that mean that ha has to be accusative? No. The case is determined by what? Its function. Now, which is it? Is it nominative or accusative? So you see inside the relative clause, my verb here has which person for its subject? I. So this is the direct object. Human is the indirect object, right? Now, when we have relative pronouns, it's harder to see their function when we're using words like which or that, right? So here's what we should do. Take the head and plug it in and replace the pronoun with it and see if it makes sense. I preached the gospel to you. Isn't that what he's saying? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. There's a gospel, and I preached the gospel to you. So it is the direct object role, isn't it? That's why it is accusative. Even though it could have been nominative in form, it's not nominative in this sentence. All right, so I make known to you the gospel which I preached to you. That's the first relative clause. There's a series of really wonderful relative clauses here. Ha, that's a relative pronoun, right? Kai paralabate. How would you translate that? Which. Okay, so is this kai joining two things together that are grammatically like each other? No. So this is probably not going to be and, but also. Which also, par elabate, you received. Now, what case gender and number is ha, the relative pronoun? Same. Accusative. Could it have been nominative? Yes, right? Ha is nominative or accusative. Singular, neuter. Why am I telling you accusative? Because it's the direct object of you received. The subject is you here, so it can't be the subject, right? You received that gospel, which you received. En ho kai hestekate, in which also, we're going to translate that as also, you stand. All right, so why is, what case is this? Look at that iota subscript. Dative, singular, and is it masculine or neuter? It could be both in terms of the form, right? But what's the referent or antecedent or head? It's still the gospel, so it must be neuter, right? And the antecedent over here is accusative in case, but notice this one's dative. Why? Ah, yes, because its function is as the object of the preposition en, which requires its object to be in what case? Dative. Okay, now, in which also you stand. Now, again, you might lose fact of what the antecedent is here, or what it's doing. So plug in the head here. What is he saying? You stand in the gospel, right? The antecedent and the relative pronoun are referring to the same thing. And then finally, dihu kai sodziste. What's the full word that I'm missing a vowel for? This is dia. That's a preposition, right? How many cases can the object of the preposition be in? Yeah, this could be followed by the accusative or the genitive. Which is it here? Yeah, you see that upsilon, right? So that's genitive. What? Okay, I'm sorry. Give me the parsing. Genitive. Singular or plural? Singular. Masculine, feminine, or neuter? Oh, it could be masculine or neuter, but what is my head? It's neuter, because ta evangelion is still the head, right? In other words, I have stacked 4 relative clauses all describing the gospel. All right, so this is neuter, but it's genitive, right? So my head is accusative. I had an accusative relative pronoun here, an accusative relative pronoun here. You might get lulled to sleep and think, these are accusative because the antecedent's accusative, but that's not why they're accusative. They are accusative because they are direct objects in their own relative clause. How do I know that? Because in these other relative clauses, they are not accusative because they don't have to be accusative. They have to be whatever case the function requires. So what is dia plus the genitive going to mean? Through. So, through which kai sodziste, through which you also are saved. Okay? Now, those are 4 wonderful sermon outline points, aren't they? Sermon points, aren't they? I mean, this would really be a great sermon text for you. If you're learning how to preach, this is the first time you want to preach, expound the gospel. Paul gives you 4 awesome points about the gospel. It's a gospel that is preached. It's a gospel that is received. It's a gospel that one stands in. It's a gospel through which one is saved. This should be true of every person who's a believer, right? Someone brought the gospel to them. That person had to receive it. That person stands in it. That person is saved by it or through it. Okay, good. And he wants to make that known to them, doesn't he? All right, good. Anything else?
One more.
Number 4.
So I translated it, but in God's grace I am who I am. And the answer key says, and by the grace of God, I am what I am.
Yeah. So karati here is what case gender number? Dative, singular. Grace just has to be feminine, doesn't it? All right. Yeah. 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 So this is just really a function of the dative case. A noun in the dative case can actually have a number of semantic values. So it could be in, it could also be by, it could be to, it could be for. Okay? So as we get into second semester and we get to the end of the book and we start reading texts and start looking at Wallace's syntax grammar, we're going to see that the different cases can have a fairly large number of semantic values. And when you're learning Baby Greek, you get a couple, right? And they're not always going to cover all the cases that you learn in your homework. So here, the dative case of charis is by, as in by means of, okay? So by the grace of God. Now, I want to talk about the relative pronoun here, okay? What case, gender, or number is ha here? It is singular. What gender is it? It is neuter, yes. And what case is it? Nominative. Could it be accusative? In form it could. In the context, no way Jose. Because ami is a copular verb. Yeah, we always want nominative case with that, don't we? Whether it's the subject or the predicate nominative. All right, so accusative's formally possible, but contextually impossible. Okay, but why in the world do we have neuter? We understand singular, right? Paul is talking about himself. He's singular. He's not legion. But why neuter? Well, here's the question. This is a relative pronoun, right? So ha ami is the relative clause. What is the head noun that the relative clause is modifying? Well, I's the subject of ami, right? It's implied. I am. So I am blank, which I am. Yes, the head is missing, isn't it? But in Paul's mind, apparently, this is something neuter. So if you want to apply an appropriate head given the gender of this is neuter, you might say, I am maybe the thing which I am. Or, I am, as our English versions say, what I am. If he had said, on the other hand, ami has ami, how would you translate that? I am who I am. I am the one who I am. Because it's masculine there, right? Not neuter. So for some reason, he chose a neuter pronoun here. Because the unstated head, the null head, must have been neuter in his mind. I am whatever thing I am. I'm, you know what? That's a good question. Let's check real quick. So we have no textual variance. I am what I am. I am that which I am. So the idea probably is anything that I am, like whatever you could conceive of that you might think positive, I'm that by the grace of God. Not just who I am, but whatever God has made me to be. All right. Should we stop there? Yeah, all righty. Good. Let's take a break.